Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Creating an expanded universe is no easy task. For one, you have to have a concept that you can expand from. Star Wars was easy. You had an entire galaxy of opportunity and endless stories to tell. Friday the 13th? Not so much. What are you gonna do? Add more Jasons or other monsters? You do that and all you have is an urban fantasy series. Next, you gotta figure out what kinds of stories that you can actually tell, and then you have to figure out if your franchise is actor-based or setting-based. If it's based on an actor, you are screwed, because the casual fan will not care about new characters and will always want Madude, even after Madude has aged out of the role. If you have something that is based on a setting, you have a better chance of getting an expanded universe going. Aliens had an expanded universe because it was half setting based and half actor based. The lay fan wanted Ripley, but in the games and comics and books, new fans came to that and came to love those protagonists even though Ripley wasn't there. The reason Aliens initially worked with an expanded universe was because it had a fully formed and compelling cyberpunk setting and the cool mystery of the space jockeys. You then add in the villainous corpos, the heroic colonial marines, and finally the xenomorph itself could act, if not as a driving motivator, then at least some spice that helped separate Aliens from the pack of other sci-fi settings. Aliens was more than the alien, and it maintained its popularity mainly due to its cyberpunk setting, which was a bit harder edged, but more imaginative than most seen in the 80s/90s and today. The true Aliens EU had writers that were willing to go beyond the standard horror plot of Aliens, and so Aliens was able to grow beyond its spooky monster in a haunted house roots. The Aliens EU began in the late 80s after the release of Aliens, and consisted initially of an epic trilogy of comics that were later turned into novels. The first comic was called Aliens Book 1, and the first novel was called Aliens Hive. It took the xenomorph to its absolute height. It brought back the fan favorites of Hicks and Newt that sadly had to be renamed to Wilkes and Billy upon the release of the abominable Alien 3. Our heroes, no matter the name, journeyed to the xenomorph home planet, or so they thought, and they blew it up! After a few misadventures with some corpo bastards. Our heroine also turned out to be psychic and made mental contact with a living jockey alien and learned that it was uncaring of humanity, but it hated Xenos. Upon their return to Earth, they found it overrun with xenomorphs. With society in complete collapse, they were able to escape the Earth, but found themselves trapped on a planetoid controlled by the fiendish xenomorph-loving General Spears. He saw humanity as expendable and Xenos as the next stage of life, and planned to conquer them with his so-called loyal xenomorph troops. After leading a failed rebellion, our two heroes make it onto Spears' ship and return to Earth. They escape a ship in an escape pod and end up on Gateway Station, and they watch Spears get splatted when his troops decide he is not paying them enough. The end of the comic/novel had Ripley showing up and saying that she's tired of waiting in the shadows and wants to take the fight to the xenomorphs. In the comic, she shows up with a gun as big as she is, and she strikes a pose. And now we come to the final chapter in the true Aliens EU saga, Earth War. Earth War was the comic and was published in 1990, and the novelization of the comic was published in 1993 and renamed to the Female War, which is fitting because it's primarily females that fight each other. Aliens Female Earth War features the return of Ripley. It was really bloody smart to wait this long to bring her back. No franchise that wants to last needs to have its entire franchise be based around one actor or one character, because it will never be able to grow that way, and it's far better that we had two books with new characters instead of just the old standby. Ripley is characterized well in this novel. She is a no-nonsense leader, but she is broken in places and suffers from all the trauma she has experienced. Pretty much everyone in this novel is broken to some extent due to the Xenomorph War, but the best part is that they never give up on themselves or humanity, and they're willing to go to great lengths to finally take down the foul Xenomorphs. The plot gets kicked off by bad dreams. In this continuity, xenomorphs are psychic, and some humans can receive xenomorph psychic visions. Hicks, Newt, and Ripley start asking around and find that other people are having those xenovisions too, and eventually they think they can figure out where they're coming from, and they think it's a Queen Mother alien that is sending them out. The Dream Team recruits some more members and brings the spooky dreams to the higher-ups on Gateway Station, only for them to not take the scary dreams seriously, and thus we have the first cool bit of the novel where Team Ripley has to hatch a plan to steal a ship. They succeed and head out into an uncertain future. Can the super xenomorph queen be used as a weapon against the rest of the xenomorphs on Earth? Or is it all just hopeful ramblings of broken people? That is how you do an expanded universe. You take what worked before and you give it a new dimension. The Xenos are made scarier and the protagonists are given more to do than just survive and escape. The stakes are raised and the audience is filled with dread and anticipation. Since Aliens is a darker universe, we fully expect our heroes to fail, but they still have a tiny hope of success. The main thing I love about the real Aliens EU is how, well, real everything feels. The writers did their job well in making the Aliens universe feel as cold and as uncaring as the films portrayed it to be. There is no Captain Dude coming to save the day. He's dead, had his head torn off. There are no teleporters or phasers, and we never see the government forming a group of badasses to take anything out. It's all up to broken people to do something about the xenomorph situation, and the government doesn't care about no dreams. This is one of the few good stories about normal people rising to the occasion and overcoming their fears and becoming true heroes. From Aliens Book 1 / Earth Hive to Female War, we have seen our major protagonists grow quite a bit. Hicks originally was a bit, shall we say, fatalistic. Now he is somewhat cynical, but still doesn't want to give up on humanity. Newt was pretty nutty in Book 1, but now is a bit more sane and turning into a Ripley Jr. This novel features my favorite version of Ripley, as it gives her more to do than just survive, and we finally see that she has grown from a broken woman at the beginning of Aliens to a stalwart and steadfast leader of men. And it's awesome to see the RIP team, believe it or not, hatch legit plans instead of just running for an exit. Truly an epic final installment of an amazing trilogy. Ripley's team, believe it or not, make it to the aliens' true homeworld, and they are well equipped. Before they left, Ripley had them build some power armor out of power loader scrap, cause she figured they'd be getting into a hell of a scrap when they went to kidnap the Queen Mother. And they do, because in this battle, they gotta fight Palantines, which are like Praetorians, only the size of queens. We get some weird narration when one of the RIP team gets killed by 2 Palantines. It's described, and I'm quoting here, as a vicious parody of sex. Man, the 90s could get weird. The Ripley, believe it or not, team beat the crap out of the Queen Mother and load her onto the ship. Gotcha, gonna be jealous. They haul her to Earth, and the plan here is a pretty sound one. They're gonna boot the Queen out over a location with some leftover nukes. You see, back in Book 1, the surviving governments of Earth planned to try and detonate some nukes to take out a big chunk of the Xenos in order to thin their massive numbers. However, for some reason, the nukes didn't all blow up, so Ripley plans to have the Xenos congregate around the Queen Mother and then blow the nukes so as to give humanity a better chance at winning the war. Not a bad plan, but it does rely on the Xenos actually doing what Ripley wants, but whatever. The end of the comic / novel has Newt heading out to save a kid she saw on the space TV and having to fight some Xeno battles. The kid gets saved, the bombs are blown up, either immediately, man those are some fast Xenomorphs, or B, a few months later in the novel. The novel leaves it ambiguous if this worked or not, but spoiler alert, it works and humanity is able to eventually resettle Earth. Sadly, the novels lead out a major part of the conclusion of this story arc. In addition to the Xenomorphs, the space jockeys were supposed to be villains too. This never went anywhere in the novels, but the comics did follow up on the jockey concept in the very next comic after this one, whereupon they were never mentioned again. In short, the jockeys wanted to terraform Earth for some reason. It's never explained why the jockeys want to terraform Earth in the first place. In Aliens, the Female War, the ship's just kind of chilling out over Earth, and then it just disappears in the very next novel. It doesn't do anything. In the comics, we do get a follow-up that explains what happens to that jockey ship. It gets blowed up! This was a hard-to-find comic for a while, but now it has been reprinted many times in the various Aliens omnibuses. In this comic, the US government exists again, and the president is tooling around in a space shuttle, which is to the future what a Curtis Jenny would be to us. This is a pretty neat little comic. The president actually sacrifices his life by secreting an explosive inside of himself, and then blows himself up along with the jockey. Very few times will we ever see in media leaders actually sacrificing their lives for their people, and it really stood out to me. It's an oddly positive message in an otherwise dark universe. After the end of Earth/Female War, the Aliens universe would never see a return of Ripley, Hicks, or Newt, although Alien the Alien mentions that someone read Newt's journal, and so one assumes that she finally settled down for a peaceful life somewhere. The rest of the Alien stories would feature new characters, and never again would we have a trilogy of connected stories. Although some stories would reference each other, I feel like there's a big missed opportunity for a cool story where humanity had to fight the space jockeys for dominance of the galaxy. The Xenomorph could also work as a third faction if you had another big queen somewhere get smart enough to use ships. You could also have the Yacha get thrown into the mix as well. Another big missed opportunity is Ripley herself. She never shows up again, and we never know what happens to her. And in the novel, the mystery is even greater. The novel came out after Alien 3, and thus Ripley had to become a Terminator, a human replica android, and we never learn who built her or why. That would have been an epic book on its own. In the original comic, Ripley just went on a top secret anti-xenomorph mission after the events of Aliens, and we get to see that. Sadly, the Aliens expanding universe would not last and was gone by the 2000s. Now we have a new Aliens EU that is as generic and soulless as all the other franchise reboots. Regardless of the modern chaser, I still recommend the true Aliens EU. If it has been a while, crack him open again and have some fun. And so, I am GeneralLotz wishing you good Aliens, Berserker, and good Aliens Labyrinth, or whatever makes you happy. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing, and please consider leaving a like or a comment, as the algorithm desires your soul. And I want to thank all those fans who have supported this channel, both past and present.